There was a story on our friends at Inside the Ropes. By the way, Kenny McIntosh, hope you're feeling better. He's been puny lately. But
I don't know you, but yeah, get well soon. You have such a great name. You got to be healthy.
I love Kenny McIntosh, and he's with Inside the Ropes, and his itrwrestling.com site had a story on comments that Bubba Ray Dudley made recently about an altercation that he had with the La Résistance team, Sylvain Grenier, I believe. I never could pronounce his fucking name, and Rene Dupree. And this just tickled me because I can see all these people doing all these things. So anyway, but Bubba Ray said, he was talking about he was a straight up person to do business with. He was, it was, you could tell him anything and he would say anything. But he wouldn't take it personally or whatever. But, if you fuck with him or basically he's trying to say, and in a roundabout way, well, I guess it's not even a roundabout way. He described him as the shits, but he was trying to say that the La Résistance team had a bunch of heat with the fans because their gimmick, but they were the shits in the ring. And he and Devon tried to have matches with him, but it was getting so bad that he and Devon were starting to look bad. And honestly, Rene Dupree was pretty good, but Sylvain was nyeh, right? And that's why they put Conway in there. It was a Freebirds instance in that they needed a worker like Buddy Roberts on the team. So they put Conway in there, even though he's not French, he's from fucking New Albany.
I was going to ask you, the period of time that Bubba Ray's talking about, is that when Conway was with the team, or is it before Conway?
Well, he just mentions Sylvain and Renee. So anyway, this is the story. So one night in the ring, this is Bubba Ray. It was that time, and me and Devon had just started laying it in a little bit. And we come back through the curtain, and one of the La Résistance guys, he didn't say who, but it had to be Sylvain. One of the La Résistance guys goes to me in a French accent, "Ugh, what are you shooting on me for? Don't you know I am green?" So I smacked him in his face. And then he says, Johnny Ace pulls me and Devon on the side and goes, "Come on, Bubba, you can't be beating up the young boys." And I said, "Johnny, let me ask you a question." And I can hear Bubba Ray saying this. "Let me ask you a question. If me and Devon showed up in Japan and were working against you and Dr. Death Steve Williams, and Doc started laying into me in the ring, and I would have come back through the curtain at Korakuen Hall and say, 'Hey, Doc, what are you shooting on me for? Don't you know I'm green?' What would have happened?" And Johnny said, "Doc would have beat the shit out of you." I said, "Exactly, and I would have deserved it." "Well, I get your point, but you can't beat up the young boys." So Bubba said it wasn't a matter of beating someone up. It was a case of educating someone in a physical manner.
That's a great Johnny Ace you do.
Well, thank you. Well, I've had to hear it a lot. And Bubba added that if someone is not getting it and putting lives in danger in the ring, they may have to be smacked around a little bit, and there was nothing wrong with it. And but Rene Dupree in a postscript says has been previously open about his perceived negative treatment in WWE. He's also said that The Undertaker had ordered talent to piss and shit in his bag.
Is that true? I didn't hear that.
I don't know that anybody had to be ordered to do it. It might have been, "Hey, Taker, could we do this?"
I mean, it's always been said he's a locker room leader, and whenever there's wrestlers' court, he's the judge. So how does it work? Does he call the people over? Does he summon them and say, "It is now time for a shit and piss mission. You all must do it. If you say no, Bubba Ray will beat you up in the back"? No. How does it work?
No, well, the wrestler's court, the judgments were made oftentimes to fit the crime, or just it's a token judgment. If somebody was accused of not furnishing the beer, or the young guy wasn't respectful enough in carrying the bags, he had to buy the bus a case of beer. Or if somebody cock blocked at the bar, then he had to buy the bus a case of beer, or whatever. Those were the official judgments. I doubt very seriously if Undertaker came in the building one day and decided, you know what? Somebody needs to piss in that motherfucker's bag and told people to do it. I would think that more of it was that a bunch of people came to the building that day and said, we'd like to piss and shit in this guy's bag. Undertaker, should we? And after they explained their reasoning, he probably said, yeah, I think you should. Now that I can believe happened. I'm not saying any of it did, but that I could believe.
Undertaker, there's another candidate to shit and piss at the door. I know 3 other people are doing it, but this guy really wants to do it too.
Yeah.
Can you please let him in? You know, I guess my thing is just...
And sometimes people have bashful bowels and you've got to call in a fucking stunt shitter or a pinch pisser.
But you know who never had that problem? Johnny Valentine.
That's true. And, you know, some guys did have the talent. They could conjure something up just on the sperm of the moment.
What I was going to say is, I get the point about it being disrespectful to the business, and I get every part of it. Although it's important to remember, Bubba Ray didn't come up in the territories. It came up in ECW. I could see wanting to hit the fucking guy for saying that, but even in 2003, 2004, you can't fucking do that. I mean, that's just... anyone knows that. You can't be slapping people around for no reason.
Well, it's not. At least it wasn't the first time that Johnny had to deal with shit like that.
You should have sued. Hey, there's no consistency here.
Yeah.
Look what happened to me. What happened to him? He's beating up guys right there in front of everybody.
I don't know. Actually, I got the better end of the deal. I didn't have to deal with him anymore after that. Bubba still had to put up with him.
See, I think that's just the period of time where, you know, Sylvain Grenier is an interesting example because that was someone who was just, Pat Patterson was friends with him, and that was the reason he was where he was. It was because of his friendship with Pat. But that was kind of the beginning of the...
And not in that way, by the way.
I wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying that.
Well, some people would read that into it.
I encourage everyone to read the book that Bertrand Hébert wrote with Pat.
Actually, the French-Canadian bond is even stronger than the bond of, you know, like-minded sexual mores or tastes or whatever the case may be. Because those French Canadians will go to bat for each other every time, whether they're any good or not.
But that's kind of the beginning of that period, really. Or, you know, I guess as it was getting going, of just people who all of a sudden started showing up. They had no wrestling background, really. They maybe were rushed to TV. People who didn't belong. And that's beyond the cultural changes in the world and popular culture. That was the big cultural change in wrestling, at least in WWE, was you started getting all these outsiders coming in, and then younger people, and then all of a sudden, and I'm not saying it's completely wrong, because I don't want to romanticize, hey, I just started slapping, Sylvain Grenier around. But there was no place for that anymore. All of a sudden, if you had that mindset, you're a complete dinosaur back there, because look at what WWE, it's guys who came off the indies, and it's people who they've somehow found and talked into being wrestlers.
Or you can say it like this. Wrestling started going downhill when they stopped slapping the fucking rookies around and kept fucking up. And then they never learned, and they continued to fuck up. And here there's a lot of people in the business that need slapped around today.
What did Grenier do? Did he say anything about what the reaction was? Or anything there in what you're reading?
But no, not in what I'm reading. And I would imagine he was fairly quiet about it also, with Bubba and Devon standing there.
How did that team survive? I mean, and again, I'm not justifying anything, but knowing what everyone felt about Rene Dupree, fair or unfair. And if that's his partner's mindset, how did they survive 2 minutes? How did they survive longer than the Dicks, than the Tolans did up there? It doesn't make any sense.
Because the Dicks weren't actually really dicks.
Except to each other.
They were nice guys.
Except to each other.
Yeah, they couldn't stand each other.
Kick the shit out of each other in the locker room.
I liked both those. I mean, Tank Toland was a fucking great talent, and he was another guy that was run out of if they had Tank Toland in AEW right now, he would be the fucking AEW champion. They would love that guy. He could do every fucking thing.
I know you hate hearing it, but I gotta say it. My favorite period of OVW is when you had the Tolands and the Heartbreakers and Eminem. It was so much fun. It was the most fun period.
Why would I hate hearing that?
Because I thought you would be upset that I didn't pick like 2001 and I didn't pick different other periods as being my favorite OVW period.
2001, we were still in the old building. So.
Well, you get my point.
Yeah.